then what prevents the situation of having a licensed doctor come by once every month, quarter, year, whatever, check the box on medical, and the rest is just a beauty parlor, to use an old antiquated term.
That's the concern that I have, is
that's
you could have Supercuts decide to become a medical spa. Okay, I'll take this to an extreme, for example.
This is not aimed at her. This is aimed at how generically changing the zoning ordinance.
And so they bring in 10 people that are beauticians, but they convert one of them, they get some kind of medical license. That's not what we want.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Let's say you do it on revenue or do it on a number of staff who are medical or whatever else. What happens when they fall below the threshold? They get kicked out of the zone, or what?
I believe so. That's no different than other businesses that deal with that. We would do that.
But are we checking in everybody else? No.
Well, it comes back to what Ruth said earlier. If we get complaints, and there's some things, Mayor, that are just obvious. You know, there's some uses, if they make a radical change, we're not going to give them a blank check and say, well, you're in. I don't think a test is overly onerous. Again, I don't know if I found the best benchmark to be the test, but I think there needs to be one.
We don't let any business just change the nature of their business based on what they, their plan.
How would you handle, if a physician is already in an office zone and he decides, and I know of a few that have added the pedicurist in the back and wanting to do that, and then they add an esthetician who's regulated by the cosmetology board and starts doing, they're sliding over to the personal service side, but they're already a doctor's office. Is that also, could happen, but I doubt very much if they've been visited by anyone, as far as doing that.
Hair care and whatever. I mean, it's a predominant.
They advertise, yeah.
It's struggling with defining incidental versus predominant.
Mm-hmm.
And if your question is, and I'll just answer for me personally, if your question is, would we hold them accountable as well? My answer would be yes. If a business use changes, it's no different than any other business we have. They have to change to meet whatever new criteria is mandated by that business.
So if a doctor's office starts adding personal services from the non-office side, then what would happen?
We could eventually have a problem, yes. Whenever it would cross over. Yeah.
Just like Ruth said, it would probably start with a complaint. And then all of a sudden the town would be aware of it. And it'd be no different than if somebody running a business out of their house. I know Ruth has been involved many times having to send a cease and desist order saying you are not zoned for that particular use out of your house, so you can either move to another zoning or you can stop doing it. So the town does enforce that. It's as unpleasant as it may be. Stacy, can you think of a benchmark? I mean, whether it's the revenue side, or that would be easy for you to, if the staff ever asked you, can you provide this? You say, well, I can provide this.
It would have to be, as far as the way that I use a computer system, thank God for computers, but, it's regulating and looking at different departments and so forth. That would have to be redesigned, I suppose, because when we're talking about, there are certain treatments that are done by certain individuals that might qualify from the medical side, but they are being performed by another person that may not fit. Several opportunities might arise where we have a physician's assistant or a nurse injector, actually doing facials. So all of a sudden, okay, well, how do we categorize, that? Again, estheticians oftentimes do that. Estheticians are licensed to do a variety of things in addition to use of equipment or machines, microdermabrasion and the laser.
But medical
and so
type
forth.
things is what you're
Correct.
I mean, what I'm thinking, even though the mayor wasn't necessarily excited about the idea of quantifying the revenue, to me that might be a pretty simple thing to say, this is my revenue, this is how much we had on the medical side, and this is how much we had on the salon or spa side, or traditional, those other things. And as challenging as it may be, that may be the only thing that I can think of that's probably just the easiest thing that's pretty darn similar to what the restaurants do. And to answer your question, I think it's 40%. Your alcohol sales can't exceed 40% of your total food sales. Thus, you become a bar, which we don't allow in the town of Farragut, strictly bars. And maybe 40, 60 the other way around, I can't remember. But the restaurants provide that information. I assume it goes to, I guess, the town recorder, who issues the beer permits. But nevertheless, is that something that you would be comfortable with if you use, I don't know, Ron said maybe the 30% benchmark, and if you could provide that information if the town if the town was concerned or town needed to review that?
It wouldn't be impossible to, it'd be redesign of the actual layering of coding our services and things like that. Whoever does them, we'd have to code them to try to produce a report. So it'd be a little bit of busy work there to kind of create that. And then I think I would need to have a distinct and specific list of what the board calls these, medical or non-personal services. We have image consulting, we have lash extensions, we have, things that don't have to be done by the doctor, don't have to be done, they have to be done by a licensed, individual, but they are oftentimes done by an esthetician in a medical spa. So it depends on who does it. Yes, barbers, yes, are licensed. Nail techs are licensed.
It's a different board, though. A barber's a different board
A barber, yeah, they're completely different than the cosmetologist. Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
I got a question for you from the, I did not look at your building plans, which I probably should have, because I didn't think about this conversation going this way. But physically, the area where you're doing the hair and the area you're doing the nails versus the area where you're doing the other stuff, is that, I would think the other stuff goes on in a room that's more private versus the nails and the hair. Is there a way to look at your physical space and how it is? I realize that you can take someone into a room and cut their hair by themselves, but that'd be a little awkward.
Kind of creepy.
Kind of creepy, but if you so were inclined, I don't know.
What you're getting at, in our plan currently, we have actually 4 private areas that have doors. The 2 areas devoted to myself and another staff member who are licensed by the cosmetology board. We do a variety of treatments and services that in private, that's going to be nice for us. We have, in addition to the hair, we have those kinds of services. We have hair extensions, I mentioned, for people with hair loss that don't want to be viewed. So we have the new accommodations will be very nice for that. The lash extensions needs privacy, and that's done by Veda, one of our technicians. There are 2 completely private areas with ceilings on them and different doors and so forth that are done. Obviously, those are the aesthetics, all the quiet, private concentration areas, different lighting, equipment that needs to be locked up and controlled for safety and things like that, massage, etc. Those particular 2 areas. We do have a small area for the nails, the pedicures and manicures. And I'd like to say on that note, we use only gel products. If any given time you walk in our current facility, you never smell what you smell in a mall. That's monomer. We don't use that. So any given time you walk in, you wouldn't even know we're doing nail services unless you walked up a foot close to the bowl of acetone.
My question is, you're going in with a doctor. You're going into business with a doctor. There's a percent of this business that is related to him, and then what percent is not related to the doctor? That would be the hair and nail part and the image consulting and your retail part. Is that a division?
As I was saying, yeah,
he's not getting, the doctor, whoever this may be, is not getting a portion of your revenue.
Correct.
From that
He is
aspect.
Completely, yes. And
so there
that's
is a separation there.
There's a clear separation, and he is certainly not an employee of mine as far as the connection there. He is.
So there is a clear separation.
There's a clear separation. So I guess what you're asking, looking at revenue, we would need him to make a report of that because he will be collecting.
Well, I'm just getting at, there's a percent, looks like there would be a clear percent there of the business that is defined for him and a clear percent otherwise.
Kind of, that's where I say the estheticians are not doctors. But I will tell you, I mentioned this last
But
week.
their business is somewhat related to
Yes,
his.
they are actually hired more by doctors now than they are any other place, in the workforce. So they are performing a variety of treatments that the doctors don't want to pay the high salary. So it's a beautiful connection because they get the job done without, the burden on the revenue loss for
But
that.
again, my question is, there is a clear definition of what is the doctor's relationship to the business and a clear percent relation of what is not the doctor's.
Yes.
I guess Rita's kind of touched on something, and looking at the definitions that I found is that, that basically what they have is the medical spa is that operates under the supervision of a licensed healthcare professional. And I guess what percentage of, assuming dollars are equal, of your customers are getting a service that is provided by what is being supervision of the healthcare professional?
And you may know there are a lot of physicians that are directors and not physically, and that they are overseeing, treatments and things like
I would consider a
that.
physician's assistant a licensed healthcare professional or a nurse practitioner or something like that, even though I know that both of them operate generally under a doctor. But what percentage of your clients, customers, whatever, get the services that are under the licensed healthcare profession?
And let me slide in another question there related to permanent cosmetics, because that's regulated by the health department, and I don't consider that hair at all. They're not connected at all.
But does the doctor get a percent of that?
He does not.
I'm not
That
even
is
thinking about
She
getting
is- she
a
is an
percent of money. I'm
independent
just
individual,
talking
just like
about
he
that's
does.
under
He
the
is.
supervision.
Talking about actual traffic, people walking in the door.
Right, I'm taking money out of the equation, I'm taking physical space out of the equation, because the traditional definition for medical spa is that operates under the supervision of a licensed healthcare professional. That's not everything that's offered, but there is there is stuff that's offered, that's under that. And I guess